A lot of Sixers news and rumors to get to on today's show going into Thursday's NBA trade deadline. And speaking of the deadline on Thursday, myself, Harrison Graham, going to be live starting at 1 o'clock Eastern on Thursday on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel, which is approaching 280,000 subscribers. We'll be reacting to all of these trades as they happen and, of course, continuing to provide you Sixers coverage right here on the channel. But make sure you join us on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel by plugging in that link down below. Look forward to seeing a lot of you then. Welcome into Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Sr. A lot to get to on Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, as well as Danny Green. Also, Adrian Wojnarowski just said on ESPN that the Sixers are willing to hold off on a Ben Simmons trade going into the offseason in order to get back a star player. That's the most recent reporting from Woj, but of course, we've been hearing that over the last couple of weeks. Who knows what's going to happen heading into Thursday? I do know we have you covered right here on the channel. As for what Brian Windhorst had to say about a different player other than Ben Simmons, because it's always refreshing when we don't have to talk about 2-5, the Sixers could be willing to trade Tobias Harris going into the deadline or possibly during the offseason in order to clear some cap space to bring in a player like James Harden. Here's the report from Windy. The Sixers and Nets have proceeded with other trade calls in recent days, sources say. The Nets, for their part, are looking to see if there is a market for injured guard Joe Harris, while the Sixers are looking for a way to move Tobias Harris, potentially to clear up space in the summer to sign James Harden outright. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for the Sixers to unload Tobias Harris's contract, going into Thursday. And if that doesn't happen, if they want to keep this roster intact because they're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, according to the win-loss column, maybe they elect to trade him away after the year to another team to absorb a contract like Bradley Beal's, maybe even James Harden's. Now, when it comes down to Tobias Harris, I really like when the guy is aggressive. He has phenomenal size, and when he's aggressive, when he's going downhill, he's a threat on the offensive end of the floor. Now, I hate how he disappears in some of these big games, and honestly, there's no excuse for a player of his skill set, of his makeup, of his size to disappear in some of the big games like Toby disappears in, but I want to see more aggressiveness from Toby, and hopefully if he doesn't get dealt, instead of seeing it in spots, we're going to see that more often from Tobias Harris, considering the contract that he is getting paid that we'll show you here in just a few moments. But I want to gauge where Sixers fans are at with Tobias Harris, who I've always said is a nice player who's overpaid. Do you want the Sixers to trade him? Get into the comment section right now and let me know. Type T for trade, type K for keep. We always value your responses, so get those responses in the comment section. And as I mentioned, no matter what happens with the Philadelphia 76ers, if they make a trade or if they don't make a trade, we have you covered leading up to the NBA trade deadline and after it, because here on the channel, we're doing it for the homies, providing you coverage all throughout the calendar year. Hit that red subscribe button down below. I want to see how fast we can get to 4,000 subscribers, show out Philly, and show me, the Philly guy, that you love our videos. As for Toby's contract, it's bad. It's one of the worst in the NBA, as I talked about, and as I've talked about here on the channel. He's a good player who is grossly overpaid. This year, he's on the hook for a base salary of almost $36 million. It goes up to $37.5 next year, then blossoms to $39.2 before he becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2024 at 32 years old. And last year, he really had one of the best years of his career, and it's funny that it happened once he got back with Doc Rivers, because his last year with the Clippers, before he was dealt away, he was a borderline all-star. Now, his numbers, Tobias Harris's numbers, have really gotten better the last couple of weeks. He started off this year in awful fashion, and his numbers have really grown to a respectable way. But last year, 19.5 points per game, down to almost 19 this year. His rebounds have gone up. His field goal percentage has become respectable, up to 48 plus, and his three-point percentage down from 39.5 a year ago to 34 plus, and his free throw percentage continues to get better and better as well. But when you're the highest paid player on the Philadelphia 76ers, and on some nights you play well, and other nights you disappear, and you have some of these playoff no-showings, that's when fans, and that's why fans become frustrated with the likes of Tobias Harris. How about this, though, coming from Jake Fischer? I talked about what Woj had to say about Ben Simmons maybe not getting dealt until after the year. Well, if Ben Simmons doesn't get traded, could he return to Philadelphia? This coming from Jake Fischer of Bleacher Report. His reporting over time has been pretty on point. Quote, people close to Ben Simmons have reportedly pushed for him to return to the Sixers if he's not traded. Look, the Ramona Shelburne report came out last week. Ben Simmons is not in a mental spot where he can deal with the rigors of the Philadelphia fan base. He seems as though he doesn't want to come back to Philly. And even though people might be in his ear like Rich Paul in Clutch Sports, and if they're saying, Ben Simmons, look, you're a 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA player, you have an opportunity to increase your trade value and be a part of a team that has an opportunity to make a deep run in the Eastern Conference. I don't think he has the mental wherewithal or the toughness to actually return to this team. And honestly, would the team welcome him back and be like, yo, you've been a phony all year, you've been soft all year, and you want to come back now? We ain't taking that. And I think this relationship is at a point where it's so contentious where I'm not sure Ben Simmons could come back. But for the city of Philadelphia, would you welcome him back? That's the key word there. Welcome him back. Type O for hey, 25. We'll welcome you with open arms. Type D for deny. Once again, you sound off in the comment section and get that comment section popping. Speaking of popping, Valentine's Day is finna be popping for all of you who have lovely ladies. So get your girl hooked up with a 2 t-shirt pack deal from our friends at Fanatics. Was $50, now on sale for $35. That deal continues to get even better. Yesterday, the sale was $37. So plug in that link down below, chatsports.com/76valentine, and get your girl swagged out with some really fresh Sixers gear. I'll put that link in the comments section as well as the description of this video. We've already talked about Tobias Harris. We hit very briefly on Ben Simmons. How about Danny Green getting traded? These rumors continue to surface a little bit, and this is something we're also going to continue to monitor going into Thursday's deadline. Hoops Hype had this the other day. If the Sixers don't trade Ben Simmons, one other move they can make is one that gets them below the luxury tax. They are $5.1 million above the tax when accounting for a set of that George Hill's dead cap hit, which is kind of prohibitive for this team right now. Danny Green could be the cap casualty with his role diminished in favor of Matisse Thybulle. Offloading Green or trading him for a player who earns significantly less could get them below the tax. His playoff experience and non-guaranteed salary for next year should make him easy to move. Now, when it comes down to Danny Green, I was at the American Airlines Center on Friday night when the Sixers fell to the Dallas Mavericks. Any time that he was put up against Luka Doncic, he was put in a blender. He got owned. I mean, Luka was Danny Green's daddy on Friday night. Really wasn't even close. And Danny Green, one of his specialties is on the defensive end of the floor. But my goodness, he's lost a lot of that ability and a lot of his athleticism, and he's really aged seemingly overnight. I thought last year in that second round playoff series, Philadelphia really missed his leadership, but anytime he's on the floor now, he seems to be somewhat of a defensive liability, and I'd rather see Matisse Thybulle in place of him, although Matisse's three-point numbers not as good as Danny Green's. If Matisse can become at least a competent, I'm just asking him for him to become a competent three-point shooter, he'd give this team such a defensive edge. But this year, Danny Green, minutes down, points per game down, 41.5% from the deck isn't bad, nor is the almost 39% clip from three-point range. But when you're supposed to be a very good defensive player and you're getting owned on that end of the floor, you're somewhat of a liability. But as a trade chip, as a guy who has a couple of NBA championships with the San Antonio Spurs, the Toronto Raptors and the Los Angeles Lakers, and you don't have a guaranteed deal on your deal next year, for a playoff team, they might look and like to bring in Danny Green. Something, of course, that we are going to continue to monitor going into Thursday. Do you think the Sixers at all, I'm talking at all, will make a trade? Like just a trade in general? You let me know before we hop on out of here. Type Y for yes, type N for no. Of course, all of this information is so fluid. As we get new bits of information, we have you covered here on the channel. So make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below. And thanks for watching today's show.